all we need.
Okay, that's fine by me.
Excellent. Okay, so we just had a few questions. Let's start off with maybe an introduction of the team and sort of what our project is.
Yep,
Winnie,
sounds good.
do you want to take that over?
Yeah, so I am the project manager, and our team is basically talking about the inkjet printing technology within the textile industry. And yeah, we are talking about, we'd like to interview, like we're looking for like basically any insight on how things have been in the industry, or even just in the printing manufacturing side of it, as long as yeah. And so we have bloggers in our team, and also the webinar team is dealing with the webinar, and so they are interconnected, but the webinar will be more in depth, and so hopefully this interview will provide more information for the webinar team to present and like give more information than what the blog has currently given.
Mm-hmm.
Winnie, what I was thinking is, I mean, if there's something very technical, specific to sustainability in inkjet, then I could bring in or share another couple of other people. You know, what I'm quite good at is kind of bringing together people from the inkjet industry. I'm not a technical specialist, but I have kind of, if you look at what we've done recently a conference program with something like 120 speakers, all talking around the subject of inkjet and how it's being used in lots of different applications. Everything from wood flooring to textile, as you said, you know, to security printing, you know, so really broad scope for inkjet. And I guess the main reason people are interested in inkjet printing is because its flexibility and its ability to do short run production, and that's the great advantage with it. You know, it's a lot of analog print technologies would take a lot of time to set up the print system to get it ready to then print. And it works okay if you're printing, you know, 500,000 items, because the cost of production drops down as the more you produce. But of course, with digital, you have the flexibility that you could just push a button and print one, and the cost of production is the same as the second, the third, or the 50,000 or the 500,000. So it's quite good from that point of view. And in addition to that, obviously it can print differently between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different print applications. So you can change things as you go. So you might say, well, let's print wood flooring, and we want to print a grain through the wood flooring. So you can just print different grains so it doesn't look exactly the same. So that's a great advantage with inkjet.
That's amazing. Yeah. Alex, Al, would you like to begin with the questions that you have?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's great. We sort of are just maybe like just a little bit more overview before we jump into these questions. Yeah. We are working in a class, in our project management class, but all of us are in graphic communications management, and that essentially involves learning about sort of the graphic arts industry and how to manage that industry. But predominantly we learn about a lot of print. We learn about how to estimate for print. We learn about sort of the different technologies. We also learn about, some of us learn about like ebooks or, you know, like online design and stuff like that. But we have been given this task with sort of a base understanding of sort of print, and then we have been given the opportunity to reach out to professionals like yourself and sort of ask more. And I noticed that you were really good at the trade shows and informing sort of others. And so, as you say, that networking and connection. So we would love to have more people, if you have, and even more people attend our webinar.
Yeah, of course. So what are you planning? You're planning on doing a webinar, are you? So explain what you're thinking.
Yeah, so we have, so it kind of lays out in the project outline, but that we're given, but essentially it's, we have 3 blog posts, and we have to have different content in each one of those 3, but relating to sort of what our company is sort of trying to inform the public about in an education sense. So we have to build a Twitter account, an Instagram account, and a LinkedIn page, and we have to sort of educate the mundane world about sustainable textile inkjet printing.
Yep.
And then we have to come up with a webinar, and our webinar it's going to have lots of industry professionals attending, hopefully, and then from around the world. And then we'll also have our teachers attending and our other classmates attending as well. And we have to, our specific webinar is going to be on where we currently are in the industry and where we intend to go, and how we can be sustainable. So that's currently what our webinar is sort of going to encompass, and it's also going to sort of do a brief overview of what we've already talked about in our blogs. So that being said, we might use like this conversation, this interview, as a like quotes from it, if you're okay with that, in one of our blog posts, or potentially even part of the audio in a blog post, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, cool.
Your questions or anything like that, perfect. So I guess I'll just jump right into the interview questions.
Okay, I was just going to share with you just before we go, one of my customers who are quite good is a company called Cavalan. Let me just quickly share. Can you just let me share, Alex?
Yeah, let me see. How do I?
You're the host, aren't you? So if you go, I'm asking you to. You've disabled my screen share at the moment.
I have. I don't know how I did that.
All right. Can you let me in?
Yeah. How do I do that though?
Oh right. Okay.
I think you can make him as a co-host.
There we go. I think I did it. I think you can do it now.
Okay, let's try it. Yeah, cool. So can you see this?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is quite a good company that I was thinking about putting you in contact with. They're called Cavalan. They're very much about materials. They're from Taiwan, but they've got a really good reputation in terms of their products and their CSR story. They're very much in the area of printed products, so materials that you might print on. So high printing quality is basic feature, 100% clean, recyclable, PVC free. One of the big issues with printed products is they're often got PVC in. And if you've got PVC in there, it just doesn't degrade. So it goes in the ground and then doesn't disappear. So a lot of products are printed on PVC. Okay. So these graphics, these kind of things. And this company have a really good set of products. So they would be someone that might be interesting to look at.
Yes, that would be great. Yeah.
They are quite good, and they've got a really good video, which I can't see, that just gives I could probably get hold of a copy of it and send it over to you.
That would be amazing, yeah.
Anyway, so it gives you just a bit of insight into someone. Let me just get back to, sorry, now I want to come out of my, now I'm struggling to find my bits and pieces where I'm on the switches, sorry. Sorry, my fault. I want to save that because that's something I was working on. Oh shit, sorry. I don't know why I can't now get, sorry. All right, let me go and just disable my, I can't, sorry. I'm trying to, like you, I'm struggling to get to where I wanted to go. Stop.
It's okay. It's honestly confusing, this whole online world.
There we go. Sorry. I couldn't find I couldn't find the little switch.
It's
Right,
okay.
Joseph, are you still with us?
Yes, I think he is.
Just give us a thumbs up. Good. Right, Alex, I'm over to you. Fire away the questions.
Excellent. All right, so let's just get started. Could you tell us a little bit about your position and your kind of daily responsibilities in your industry?
So, to put a bit of context onto my background, in Europe, there is a trade association that is for the print industry, across all the print industry. And it's called FESPA, F-E-S-P-A. It's been around for many years. It's a European trade association, but it's a federation of printing associations around the world. And I was the managing director of that trade association from 2002 to 2010. And so for 8 years, I was managing their vision and the vision they shared with the print industry of where print was going and how it was evolving and developing. And I guess that was quite, enlightening. And also I ran big trade exhibitions where the industry came together and you had lots of printers coming and you showed lots of technology and new technology. So from about 2002, 3, 4, that sort of time, the industry was developing from very traditional print industry, which was, as we remember it, like iron, hot iron, which is kind of, if you think about if I asked you what you thought of when you were thinking printing, you kind of think of ink and stamping. Yeah, you know what I mean? Thanks, Winnie, for nodding. And that was what the industry was. It was very much about ink and then printing onto something or rolling something, or, it could be paper, it could be material, it could be a t-shirt, whatever. And that still exists, but that was the old kind of technology. And then it comes along digital print, and pretty much like the sort of digital printer that you've got on your desktop if you print paper. So it's using that kind of technology where it's basically firing jets of ink onto whatever the material is that you're printing on. And it mixes 4 colors, black and then CMYK, so cyan, magenta, yellow, CMYK, yeah. So it mixes these, and it mixes them in a way to then get the color you want. And that's really what's happened. That development in the last 20 years of digital printing into the traditional printing world means that you can now connect a computer to what you print, and the computer will tell you, to change the way it's printed, just like any technology. And that's really what's the interesting thing about the evolution of the print industry in the last 20 years. All right.
It's amazing because I think it also reduces because it takes away the need to use a plate, right? And that reduces costs.
But it just changes the dynamic, really, Winnie. It just means that in the past you were dealing with loose inks, if that makes sense, inks that were slopping around. I mean, if you can still see inks being used in screen printing. So if we were printing a t-shirt now, they'd still use pouring ink onto a frame, and then they'd just squeeze. They use a squeegee, a thing called a squeegee, which just squeezes the ink through little holes, and it pops out the other side to create the pattern. And that's using ink. It's really messy, and it's really it's very manual. It's very manual technology. So the evolution really is being to use digital technology, computers, and really desktop technology, what you and I would know as desktop technology, but just go bigger with that and just go much bigger with it. So now everything from a bottle to a pharmaceutical product to, as I said to you, clothing is often printed. You can print short run. So you can create, the great thing about this is that it enables design to just be much more flexible. So imagine if you were creating a pattern in the past, you put the pattern onto the hot plates, or you put the pattern onto the screen print, and then that was it. You had to do all the same thing. Yeah, it just was going to be the same product. So you were printing in the same way with the same end result. And what digital does is means you can just print anything. So we can have a picture of Fraiser, a picture of Alex, a picture of Winnie, a picture of Joseph. It's kind of, you can and then you just have 4 t-shirts that are printed with completely different things on them. So it just gives far greater flexibility. Now, from the point of view of designers, they like that because it means they can test things out, try things, and that's really good for things like design in wallpaper. If you might want to try and print a new wallpaper design, you want to see what it looks like, or a packaging product. So Winnie and I were producing, bottles of beer, and we want to package it in a box, and we want to get the box right, and we want to print on it just on the outside, the creative, and we want to check it out. We don't want to have to do 50,000 of them. We just want to be able to print 1 or 2 or 3 or 5.
Yeah, that's definitely variable data printing, and
Exactly. You've got it.
Yeah,
variable data.
It's definitely creating that ability to not waste material. So that's
yeah, and the other interesting thing, Alex, is that obviously with variable data, you can just plug in the names and addresses of people, and each person can have a completely different requirement, and then it just runs off and can print, completely uniquely.
That's great. Yeah,
opportunities, isn't it? It's got great opportunities. So if it's a piece of packaging, it could say this particular piece of packaging is for Alex or Fraiser or Winnie or Joseph. It can have your name on the outside, but so it's got great flexibility. And on that note of flexibility, it's interesting at the moment that you're able to digitally print cardboard. You know what I mean by cardboard, don't you? Card, yeah, boxes. Okay, so what's happening now is that, of course, everything's online. COVID has created a sense that everything's being bought online, or not everything, but a lot of things are being bought online and in a box, in a cardboard box. So a lot of digital printing manufacturers are really looking at this idea that they can print on the box, and rather than it just be a protective box, which it is about protection, that actually it can be an advertising mechanism. So you'll see soon, I think, when you open your cardboard box, on the outside it will just be a normal cardboard box with Amazon on it, but you'll open it and they would have printed a design on the inside of the card that might be an advert that says, next time you want to buy this, try this, So you're going to see more interesting things occurring.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm really excited for where it's all going, and especially the use of like technology and print as well. Like connecting both like online and print.
Yeah, that's the other great thing, of course, is that this technology enables people to set up a business that's literally a web-based business, where we don't print until someone asks us to print for them. So we have a business that is just about printing t-shirts, and you have your catalog online. So it's print on demand, exactly as it says. And only when Alex gets the money out of her pocket and pays for the t-shirt will we bother to print it.
Yeah, and that's I feel like also really good for other people, small designers to become more popular as well, for sure, because there is
sure
stuff out there. So why do you think sustainability is important in fashion, like in the industry?
So a couple of things that are occurring. Inevitably, sustainability. So interestingly, we've done some research recently, and there was a sense, obviously, that COVID was completely changing the trends, the big mega trends in the print industry. But of course, sustainability continues to come through anyway. It was the mega trend before, and it's probably afterwards it will be the mega trend. Well, interestingly, a couple of things have cropped up out of COVID that also lend themselves to sustainability. One is that COVID has caused people to think about supply chains. Yeah, so they've gone, do we want to buy this from China and have it disrupted on the journey because we've got COVID causing a problem? So in the first instance, they're worried about supply chains. So they're thinking, let's think about how we're going to get our product. So actually localization is going to be one of the trends that come out of COVID. That's a general trend anyway. And when you look at particularly again at digital, even before COVID, what was happening was reshoring of manufacturing back to nations where the demand is, where the demand exists. So for example, you're in Canada, you've got a demand in Toronto for products, t-shirts. Why get them from Beijing or Shanghai? Why not just produce them locally? Now, initially, the reason people wouldn't produce locally is because it's cheaper to produce further afield. Now, of course, there's that issue of sustainability and the cost of flying them or shipping them or whatever. So that's one thing. The second thing is, if you can make things, if demand shifts to much more of immediate and I want it tomorrow because I've seen it on Instagram, then you want it immediately. You don't want that time lag. And that immediacy and ability to have very bespoke design lends itself to digitally printed fashion. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah. Yes, it does. I actually think that's really good. Like immediate fashion and is a big one that I hadn't thought about.
Yeah, I mean, don't get too. It's interesting because there was a real sense that fast fashion was going to be where it's at, but of course there's an issue with fast fashion that if you start wearing things because you like it and then you chuck it away, that's not very sustainable.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
But the idea of production near purchase is something, and I think COVID has reminded us that localization is important.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
I think it's an interesting point that you make about how if demand shifts to becoming more immediate, especially with fashion right now, I'm seeing a trend with slow fashion in that there are more companies that are coming up now where it's more made to order, and people have to wait longer, like 6 to 8 weeks for a piece to be made. And the emphasis is for you to wait longer because you will value the piece longer. It kind of goes, it's like something different.
Counterintuitive, isn't it? Yeah, no, you're right. There is an argument about that. There is an argument about, like, if I wait for it, it's special. It's like buying a Ferrari, you know, people, or Rolls Royce. You can't go into a showroom and get a Ferrari. They just don't make them like that. They make them to order. So you wait for it a year or whatever. So that top end premium product, I'm not sure I mean, maybe premium products, but look, you know, all of us are going to just go down the local shopping mall and buy what we think it looks nice for the season, probably. And you might want the design. I mean, what was interesting, a couple of big retail outlets had started to have printing facilities inside, so you could walk in. You could go with your own design or a design that you buy, a creative design that's from a designer, and you get it printed exactly how you want it. And one of the reasons that retail outlets quite like this is a bit of what you just said, Winnie. So, for example, if you go into, I don't know what a Macy's, I don't know what a Canadian store would be. You go in there and you go and ask for your T-shirt to be printed, and they say, yeah, no problem at all. Winnie, can you come back in an hour's time, or 15 minutes, or even half an hour or whatever, and it'll be printed for you. And you think, oh, that's great. Now, they like this, the retail outlets like this, because there's a delay time between design and print and you picking it up. And that they hope that you will stay in the shop longer. So you'll, particularly in a retail department store, that you'll then wander around for half an hour, 20 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever, and then come back. So they've actually used this technique. I know that there's some companies, I can't remember off the top of my head who they are. I know that in London they have, Harrods have tried this, and Selfridges, which are kind of big top-end brands. And they tried this idea where you go and choose your own design and then you wait 20 minutes. And the idea was that 20 minutes is good because that means you're still floating around the shop, maybe buy some other things.
Yeah, that's actually, I didn't.
That's known as dwell time, by the way. Shops like you to do lots of dwell time hanging around the shop, particularly retail.
Yeah, here are, like when you go to pick up your prescription, you dwell around the offers and buy everything, all the snack foods and stuff. So that's interesting that they're starting to do that.
Yeah, they've tried that technique.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, sorry, I was burbling a bit, but hopefully that's useful.
No, that was, I think that's really, because that's like something we don't necessarily look at is like a marketing standpoint on the sustainability and like textile printing as well, and how it needs to be marketed and how people want it. And that kind of leads me into my next question, which is, do you think there is a demand for sustainability?
What do you mean?
Like, just do you think people people are buying sustainable, or do you think people will just go into their local, like H&M? I don't know if you guys have H&M.
Oh, no, of course we do. Yes, of course we do. They're a European company.
Okay, good. I was pretty sure you did.
I think. They're Swedish, I think. So, sorry, just say that again to me, because I was just thinking about saying it, and it's just to ask me again. So basically, what are you saying?
So do you think like people will go into their local H&M and, choose the slightly more sustainable product that's maybe more expensive?
That's a very good question. And I do a presentation where I talk about millennials, Generation Z or Generation Z, I guess you'd call it, people your age. And what they're saying, all the research is pointing to the fact that people of your age are much more concerned about the purpose and the ethical value of where a product is made. And that's not just a clothing product, but that's all products. So you think a lot more than someone of my age would think about those kind of things. So it's it's important to you. It's less important to me, but of course it's important to you. And then and they know that, you know, going forward, you are the future. Sounds a bit cliche, but you are the future. And therefore you are going to be thinking much more about the ethical standpoint of a product, which means that sustainability undoubtedly is good. And also there was a piece of research recently, I saw it, it was quite interesting. I think they were looking at German young people, and they saw that basically in terms of the demographic of age, you might want to look this up. I'm not 100% sure who did it. It might have been McKinsey. They looked at this research and they noticed that basically a 22-year-old German guy or girl would pay 50% more for a product if it had an ethical supply chain, or ethical, what do you call it? There's a word for it, provenance, I think is the word, which basically means where does it come from, that sort of thing. Oh, we've only got 9 minutes left on your time, Alex.
You're muted.
I do see this. Thank you, Winnie. Let's do maybe one. We only have 9 minutes. This has been really good. Maybe if you are interested, we could set up another meeting time to do another meeting. I could just send another link to you now, and because technically Ryerson only has 40-minute Zoom call meeting time, so we're not allowed to go past 40 minutes. So that's
if this is your first time hosting, though, it should extend to an hour. Like once the 10-minute mark passes, it should
let's see what
pop
happens.
up.
So
let's see what happens.
I can go ahead and ask you another question in the meantime if you'd want.
Yeah, do that.
Okay, perfect.
Was that useful, what I just said about young people, clearly? I mean, that's absolutely proven. All the numbers are pointing that way, that basically you guys are much more concerned about the ethical provenance of a product and are willing to pay more for it.
Yes.
I'm not 65, but I don't think 65-year-olds are so concerned about that sort of stuff.
I mean, probably not, but maybe if they're, you know, they're
Well, there are
grandkids
some.
or
If you
stuff.
take it as a general
Yes.
group,
Yeah,
then,
for sure.
yeah, you guys are much more likely to pay a little bit more because it's ethically, and I think that's great. That the other thing that's interesting, so it just sounds a little bit gender biased, but the other thing that's really interesting that they were saying was a big trend was that because typically what's happening is a lot of people buy. There's a sort of mix of match of buying online and buying in retail space. Women, females tend to prefer to buy in retail space. Men tend to prefer, this is trend, tend to prefer to buy online.
Okay.
It's just a trend.
Yes.
And they're also saying geographically across the world, big shift into women having more money generally, because if you go to China, women are going up the kind of ladder, but also generally women have the buying decision within this household. And so that shifts the dynamic. So if you're a brand thinking about the future of products, you're thinking, right, we need to recognize that women are going to be the buyers, not so much men. And women have very different things that are triggers for them buying than men do.
Right.
And so the whole retail world has to think differently about the experience that it offers to people. Because if it's much more skewed towards women, that's a very different experience to the experience that men would want. So just does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Yeah.
And these are general trends across the world, because of course what's happening is, more and more people are becoming wealthier. China is a good example where there's this real, and particularly women are having more money. So anyway.
No, that's perfect. We sort of have been focusing on sustainability, but we hadn't been sort of focusing on marketing trends, and this is a really good sort of point that you're bringing up that we should also focus on.
So go back to what you originally asked me: is sustainability important going forward? When we talk to our customers who are manufacturers, they are all being driven in terms of deciding what print technology to make. They're being driven by their customers, who are brands like Nestle, P&G, Unilever, these big brands, and they are all saying priority will be sustainability going forward.
Of course.
So just because of COVID, the priority for sustainability hasn't changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah.
They're the drivers. Unilever, Nestle, these big companies are the drivers. Walmart, they're the drivers. So right what you said, maybe we should think, oh, this is big trend. The big trend is about sustainability in the print industry.
Yeah, I can see that being a good quote for a blog or something. We could use that as saying customers are the drivers. That's a good one.
Sure.
Yeah. Two things there. Customers are the drivers, of course. So one element is the end user consumer is a driver. Mm-hmm. And they drive the brands who then drive the manufacturers of technology.
Right. Of course, I think that's exactly right, because we're looking at the manufacturing standpoint of why would a printer go there. So
yeah, and just on that note, in the past, sometimes manufacturers used to drive demand, so it was technology driven. So basically, when computers started developing, there was a time where we were buying computers because we were given new computers. So IBM or Apple, every time Apple come out with a new computer, it's not particularly because we want a new phone, it's because they want to drive technology. But that's slightly different when you talk about brands. They don't necessarily, they adapt what they're doing to suit trend. Anyway, sorry.
No, I think that's excellent. I think we can definitely be using that. So I guess let's go on to the next question, which is very, very similar. What do you think, what are challenges that you think inkjet textile printing will face, especially when it comes to turning sustainable?
Well, that's going to be more technical issues. So it's going to be stuff like what they print on, and the inks and the way the ink is cured, yeah, and what chemicals are in the ink, because they're the issues with sustainability, aren't they? Because if you've got some really bad chemicals in there, that's not good. So there's a difference between water-based inks, which are obviously much better for the environment because they're made, you know, and then or inks that are chemicals, polymers, those kind of things. You know, that's the difference. Recycling, yeah, I mean, of course, that's really important, isn't it? So textile is, yeah, I mean, there's lots of issues with, Alex, it's a good question. There's lots of issues with production of textile, isn't there? Because of cotton and nylon, and you know, so you need to look into that a little bit more deeply. Typically, the issue is in terms of inks, and as I said before, I think if I think it's that's how they cure it. So that's another thing. What kind of curing they use? So do they heat it? Do they use UV lamps? You know, there are lots of different issues. So there are some issues. I would say it's about the big issues with sustainability and print are the inks, the materials that they print on. So is that sustainable? Can you wash it? Can it be reused?
What do you think about post life cycle? Like, you know, like landfills, sort of sustainable upcycling. Like, can digital textile printing of inkjets be reused? Like, for inkjet be reused? Like, can it be resourced?
Yeah, washed. Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I mean, you can do. I'm not sure how many times, but yes, you can normally.
Mm-hmm.
But sure how many times you can. Different materials can be created into grayer materials. You know, you can rewash things. So it's a white, and it can be washed again once it's been printed on. It comes out a bit, it's not as white, but it's grey. If that makes sense, you can use it again.
Okay. And can you? Is there, you know, like we talk about paper and how we recycle paper? Is there any initiatives that you know about that are sort of taking old textile printing and using them for something new, but not upcycling, but what's the other word for that? Like reusing, I guess. Like there's a specific word. I know it. I had it earlier, but like, do you think that, you know, how we take paper and we make new paper with it, like old paper, and we make new paper with it?
Yeah.
Do you think that there's...
Yeah, I think you can do that. I'm going to send you a link for a video. So I don't know whether you noticed, Alex, but we did a virtual summit recently. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, in your...
Yeah. So this particular video is quite good. You might want to watch it.
Okay.
We talked in textile home, localized production. I've sent you the link. You just need to pop the link into.
Perfect.
Yeah.